Y'all, listen. If there is one thing I've learned, adversity does not build character. Adversity reveals character. I'm Barbie Bassett, and I invite you to join me and my friends, Therese, Apel, and Traci Lee, as we peel back those adversity layers to see what else is revealed. Y'all, listen here.
Yay,
Guess who's back?
We're back.
We're back. The crew is back.
Yep.
So who is the crew? Well, let me think back to who the crew. It feels like it's been forever and a day. In a minute, yes. I've got my good friends, Therese Apel here with Dark Horse Press, who is wearing a tiara today.
Yes. I am wearing a crown.
You want to tell us why, please?
Well, because it's my birthday. So
Happy
it's my birthday queen hat, you see.
Because every queen deserves a crown.
That's right.
See the crown, be the crown. Wear the crown.
That's right.
And you are. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And then our other friend, we've got Traci Lee over here with Your U.S. Country.
Yeah.
Here
US
she is.
96.
It's so good to see you back. We missed you last time.
I know. I feel like I hadn't seen y'all in forever. I mean, Therese and I work together, so I
Yeah.
see her every day, but I'm like, Barbie.
Although we did have lunch recently together.
Yes, we did. Yeah, I mean, we've talked and stuff,
Yeah.
but I don't feel like I've seen you as much as I want to. So
Well,
I'm glad to be back in this
we
room.
missed you.
I missed y'all too.
Yeah,
And Daniel.
We missed you.
Okay.
And
Yay,
speaking
Daniel.
of Daniel, our producer here with Audio Alchemy Productions, who is our podcast producer, Daniel Anderson. Go ahead and give it up for Daniel.
That's right. Yay, Daniel.
Yeah, he is our man. And I find it so interesting today. We're all wearing fall colors.
Oh, yes.
You know,
except
we do not coordinate at all.
No.
We don't talk about this at all. But we're all in the fall colors today.
Well, I didn't mean to, but I went and got my nails
Oh.
done winter red yesterday. And so today when I was trying to plan what to wear, I just grabbed this red shirt and I was like, look, it matches my nails.
It does match
Your
you.
nails look beautiful,
And
by
my
the
crown.
way.
Thank you.
And the crown.
So pretty.
That's right.
I don't know if I can handle all this sparkle
I know.
that's happening right now. in
Says
front
the queen
me.
of bling.
Well, you know, my saying is it don't mean a thing if it ain't got that bling. Good times. Listen, we know that we're coming to you on a different day. We typically come here every other Friday, but we've had to change things up a little bit because of our schedules.
Sure.
And the craziness that we've got going on in our lives. So we hope that you don't mind that we've changed it to a different day for a short period of time, but then we'll get back on things here fairly regularly, hopefully soon. So y'all come on in, join us. We are doing this live right now, streaming on social media, but just in case you're tuning in right now and you're not watching us live, that's okay. You are seeing this replay and we welcome you. Today's topic, are we ready for this?
Yep.
So first of all, let me say, it has been asked of me, do we have show notes?
No.
Ladies, do we have an outline?
No, I'm not even sure I remember what we're talking about.
And that's something that we, in fact, you and I, Therese, today had birthday lunch for you today. And we were talking about the fact that, hey, what do you want to talk about today? And many of our topics have to do with what we're going through or what we've been asked to talk about. But a topic that I thought would be so appropriate today is how do you handle people who have mishandled you in your life?
Perfect. Especially now at the holidays where you're going to be dealing with people maybe that have mishandled you. It's such a perfect thing.
Yeah. Okay. What do you think, Therese? How do you handle people who have mishandled you?
You know, generally, I try to have some kind of gracious response. And I know sometimes y'all probably roll your eyes when I'm like, well, what Jesus would do is exactly what I'm going to tell you that I would do. And it's funny because I was thinking about somebody in particular on the way over here who really affected me in a previous job in a really underhanded, backstabby way. And she's one of those people that when I actually think of her, I get angry still. And it's been since 2018 that, whatever. So it was when I worked for the state, for those of you that are doing the calculations. The thing is, when I think about like all the gracious answers that I would give, I have to, if I'm being honest, pull her up. And what would I do if I was told I had to deal with her right now? I've got her blocked on everything. She sends me a friend request on something new every now and then. I'm like, no, I don't know that she even knows that I still can't stand the thought of her. And so how do I deal with her? Mostly I just block her and avoid her. end up seeing her at some point, I can't answer this question correctly right now.
So it's almost like you have set a boundary, and while some may be upset when you say, "Hey, I've blocked so and so," or "I feel like I need to block these people." Isn't blocking for some, you being, as an example, it's a boundary that you're setting to protect your peace, maybe?
It's maybe about my peace, but it's also about the fact that I've spent the last several years of my life seriously trying to be more Christ-like, trying
Mm,
to love first and that kind of thing. And what she did to me, I considered so underhanded and so two-faced and so dishonest. And I hope she's watching and knows exactly who she is. Like I'm really that mad.
Yeah.
Um and so for me, I think that I block her out because she brings back all these emotions that I have not resolved.
mhm.
And I'm afraid that if I ran into her, I would I think I'm more afraid of having nothing to say than having something to say. I think I'm more afraid of freezing up and not knowing how to handle it than just being like, "Do you remember what you did to me and how dishonest that was? And you did it to further your career or for whatever your agenda was, and you messed with me and you messed with my life and you messed with my livelihood." Why can't I just say that? I don't know, but in my mind, if I play that interaction out, it puts me in a very uncomfortable place. So, yes, it's easier for me to block her and hope I never run into her again.
But is silence okay, though? I think sometimes you just have to be silent, and here you are worried that you won't know what to say, and maybe that's what you're to do, is that you're to be silent.
And I think that's the fear.
Mhm.
I mean, the fear is what if I don't say anything? Or if I do say something and it ends up, I mean, she's meaner than me. You know, when
Mhm.
you hate when you get in a fight with somebody who's meaner than you. So you say everything you have to say and then they come back and they're meaner and you're like, "No, that's not how this is supposed to go. I'm supposed to win," you know? There's honestly a lot of fear in me of what would happen should that interaction present itself because what she did was betray a whole lot of trusts. And I think there are places in me that are not I mean, I've moved on, but that are
Right.
not healed,
Yeah.
and not because she was anybody I held in a place of trust prior to that job, but because what they did to me was so dishonest that it left me in a place where I looked like I had done things that I hadn't done.
Mm.
And and so I think that there's a lot probably I need my therapist in here to talk with us to tell you exactly what I mean by this because I don't even know myself. There's just a lot there. So,
Mhm.
I mean, in that case, we've all had somebody like that that has
Oh,
put us
yeah.
in that position where it's like, I can't even fight back because of what you are and how you did what you did. So how do you guys do it?
Tracy? How do you handle things, Tracy?
Well, I'm Irish and I'm from Rankin County, so I've taken my earrings out a couple of times, but I think as like Therese said, you try to grow and you try to mature in Christ and you try to be a different person. Um, I've also been to therapy,
Mhm.
for things, and it wasn't a particular person, but I have not had very much luck when it comes to having relationships with like the opposite sex when having, romantic relationships. I never set boundaries for myself and I always give too much of myself too quickly. And it gets taken advantage of. And I never learned how to do that as an adult. So I stopped.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And one of the things my therapist says that there's a part of me, when he talks about, if you ever been to therapy, they talk about the different parts of you and your personality. And there was a part of me that was so broken and hurt that she hid away.
Yeah.
And there are other parts that are protecting her that are extremely fierce and won't let anything near her because they don't trust people. Bless you. And they just don't. And knowing that and trying to think about how I react to things, um, I hide away. And for me, my hiding away is my weight because it makes me unappealing to the opposite sex. So I don't have to deal with it.
Well, that's what you think.
No, it's what I know. I've been single for a long time. Men are visual creatures. And see, this is another thing, like, you can't convince me anything else. Yeah, I won't believe you. Even if what you're saying is true and what you're saying has merit, I will not believe what you're saying is true because in my mind it is not. And it won't be because I've lived it. I know. I meet guys, I do whatever. They don't care. They're not interested in me at all because I can see somebody who is next to me who's not anything like this person says that they want, and they're gonna go for them every time because they wear a size 8. Every time, without fail. So it just solidifies that in my mind that's broken, that part of me that's broken, that that is the truth. And it just it confirms it over and over and over again till I have hidden that part of me away, and I don't deal with it. I don't deal with it. I just keep hiding away. Completely unhealthy. Like, this is completely unhealthy. I'm aware of that, but that is me not dealing with that because the disappointment and the hurt, I just don't wanna do it anymore.
It's kind of like that's your protective barrier, if you
Yeah,
will. That's your
100%,
protection.
100%. Yeah,
Well,
and it is I mean, it is.
and
It
I
is.
wanna thank you for being that vulnerable
Yeah,
too,
absolutely.
because what you said, I think I mean, I've struggled with similar things, just where you make yourself almost invisible,
Yeah.
because you're afraid of, what you've been through before,
Mhm.
and I think that what you've talked about, there are a lot of victims of assault and a lot of, victims of heartbreak, things like that, that go through that, and it's like there are times that it is so much easier to be we think. Let's say
Yeah.
we think it's
Mhm.
so much
Yeah.
easier to be invisible
Yeah.
than to deal with the pain, and maybe that's why I'm so afraid of not saying anything should I run into that person again, but I think that's the place where, you have the right to ask yourself, "Is this okay with me where I am?
Yeah.
Like, in this protection zone that I'm in, is it okay with me to stay here? And if it is, that that's yours."
Right,
You
but
know?
for me, it's not, and I'm well aware of the fact that it's not. I'm well aware that what the Bible says about the truth of who God says I am and how he sees me does not match up to the reality that I'm living. It doesn't match up. So you have to make a choice. I have to make a choice in that am I going to continue living in the narrative that I have convinced myself is true, or am I going to live in the truth? And I can't sit here right now and give you an honest answer because one of them terrifies me and one of them frees me, which also terrifies me.
Well, it's all because we have been mishandled.
Yeah.
You've been mishandled so many times in your past. You've been mishandled so many times in your
Mhm.
past that you do put up that protective barrier and you're like, "Well, I'm not gonna fall for that again," or, "I'm
Right.
not gonna let my heart get broken again," or, "I'm
Right.
not going to, um, be, you know, kicked out of a career again because I don't like that feeling. I don't
Right.
like how that made me feel." And so because of that, you have that boundary. Therese, you've got that boundary. You've got that boundary. I've got that boundary. I think we need a therapist in here today.
I think we do.
I didn't mean to jump like right in the deep end there, but I just took off.
No, I
So,
think
yeah.
it's always God's timing, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
These conversations are always God's timing because one thing we've learned, and this is what is this our 6th episode or 7th? I think this is our 7th episode.
Mhm.
That every topic that we end up sharing is so timely
Mhm.
because it's not just for us, it's for everybody who is watching us live right now or watching the replay.
Mm.
Because if we felt that way, you know
Yeah.
they have felt that way too. And so the mishandling that we all go through in our life, how are you able to move forward when you have been so deeply hurt?
Well, I think that's faith, and faith is action. Faith is a verb. Now, I'm learning this in other parts of my life, and I feel like it's so funny that you said it was timely because it so is in my private study, in my private devotions. There's a wooing and a
Yes.
calling out of,
Mhm.
and I know it, but taking that first step, it's easy to do that in other areas of my life, and in some areas in particular, I didn't know what the right answer was, so I'm just like, I'm just gonna walk down this road and see how far I get before you tell me no.
Yeah.
And he said yes. Everywhere I turned, it was like, okay, we're gonna open this door. Okay, we're gonna open this. And I always used to joke my nose was turned up a little bit on the end because I just kept running into walls,
Mhm.
like it's
Yeah.
like, no. And but it just I feel that there is this calling out. And maybe that's why I'm compelled to be so vulnerable now because we were not redeemed to hide. we were redeemed to shine.
Ooh, that's a
And
word right there. Let's
Mhm.
stop right there. Let's stop
Mhm.
right there. I'm gonna let you say that again.
we were not redeemed to hide, but we were redeemed to shine.
Amen.
Mhm.
And I think you can't, people like you can only polish it so much. You can only hide the brilliance of God so much
Yeah.
before he's like, okay,
And here's the
Yeah.
that's enough.
thing, what you don't realize is when you are wanting to hide or when you're wanting to shrink back, there are so many people that are watching you and watching to see how you're handling this mishandling,
Right.
Mhm.
whatever that looks like in your life. I mean, it's almost like the Lord puts you on display through the mishandling so that way you can be, like you said, a light. You can be a beacon to other people to show that his grace is enough.
So
Yes.
much. So much.
Well, and let me say, I'll say this for all of us, that there are things we can't talk about here, but that one day will be talked about. And I think one thing I really want to touch on is the courage
Yeah.
that it takes to stand up when you've been mishandled. And to go through, because a lot of times, and we're all going to cry, I'm already seeing it, all of us. But a lot of times when you have come to a place where someone has handled you badly, um, and I mean, we're using that rather than the common vernacular of just effed you over.
Yeah.
Um, I think the courage to take what you're talking about, the public view. I mean, in our cases,
Mhm.
everything we do is public. In our cases, you can find us anywhere, everywhere. You can message us, you can get in touch with us. We cannot get away from you, the viewer, the
Mhm.
listener, the emailer, the commenter. And one of my favorite quotes is from C.S. Lewis. Here come the tears.
It's okay.
Courage is not
Look.
simply one of the virtues, but the form of every virtue at the testing point.
Mm.
And I think that when the world or your romantic other, your significant other, or your boss, or the people you work with, or the people you love the most have mishandled you, the courage to handle it in that moment and then walk away and say, what is the next step,
Right.
is terrifying. I mean, this is where we get into the John Wayne quote about like, it's saddling up anyway. Like, and I know both of you guys so much better than some. And I just want to say, in this room, I think the reason I'm getting so emotional is because I've seen you both do this. And I think that what I want our listeners and our commenters and everybody to take away is that if we can do it, you can. Because these two women I'm sitting with have very public lives, and I have watched them bear up under some really hard things, and it's a lot of weight. And it's only because of God that the three of us are sitting here.
That is so true. I'm looking at what
Mhm.
Teresa is saying. And by the way, if you're on here live with us right now, we can see your comments. Teresa says, I think that God allows us to form a callus over that box of darkness that we were handed so we can eventually be handed enough to open the box and receive his blessing from that box. Exactly. The light comes out through every little crack and loves his glory on display, leaves his
Mhm.
glory on display.
Yep.
Wow. Well, thanks to Daniel for passing. You wanna show
Yes,
what
we were all
Daniel passed
Yeah.
around?
He's bless
Daniel
his
passed
heart.
around the, bounty.
right.
I think that's the 2-ply, or it might be
Yeah.
the 3-ply.
Only the best.
Right.
Only the best. So if Bounty would like to be one of our sponsors, we are using your
Right. Product placement,
your
right
product
here.
placement.
This is where
No,
we spill it on or spill
Yeah.
something and then go, "No," while it rolls towards our computer or something.
yeah. So I was actually on this topic looking at, Proverbs 6:16 through 19. And really what I saw were some traits that God finds unattractive. And here's what some of those are. The Bible says there are 6 things the Lord hates, 7 that are detestable to him, meaning they're ugly to God. Haughty eyes, that's people who look down
Mhm.
Mhm.
on others. Lying tongues,
Mhm.
that means you're lying, I'm lying. Hands that shed innocent blood. A heart that devises wicked schemes. So in other words, someone who undermines someone else's calling, their purpose, um, their character.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I mean, there's lots of words you could fill in there. Feet quick to rush to evil. A false witness. That's somebody who says something about you that is untrue. So the other one was your lying lips. This one, from what I'm gathering and my own spiritual discernment, is when someone else is lying about you.
Mhm.
And then this would be the seventh one because scripture says he, hates
Mhm.
these seven he detests. The seventh one is someone who engages in character assassination.
Yep.
Yeah,
I did not realize this until you were reading that. Jesus went through every one of those.
every single
Every
one.
Mhm.
single one of them.
Every single one. So you think about, one version says, someone who, stirs up dissension among the brothers.
Mhm.
That's how one translation puts it. So God takes it very seriously because character assassination causes the character of someone to erode in another person's eyes
Mhm.
who have not had the opportunity to meet them for themselves.
Right.
And so if God hates 6 and the 7th one is detestable, he does not like discord. He does not like the character assassination. And then I started looking even further, Matthew 27, 3 through 5. So this is when Jesus is about to be crucified and Judas is before the chief priest. Um, it says, when Judas, who had betrayed Jesus, saw that Jesus was condemned, he was seized with remorse and returned the 30 silver coins to the chief priests and the elders. I have sinned, he said, for I betrayed innocent blood. What is that to us? They replied. That's your responsibility. So Judas threw the money into the temple and left, and he went to hang himself. And what I saw through that scripture, the Matthew 27, 3 through 5, is that Jesus was silent
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
amongst all of this, and that almost kinda takes me back to what we started out the podcast
Yeah.
with.
Yeah.
Those moments that you feel like, I wanna say something," because you know that you could take down someone's character. You know that you could reveal a lot. As the teenagers say, "I could put them on blast."
Yeah.
Mhm.
You could put that person on blast, okay?
Mhm.
But Jesus didn't do that. He was silent. It was almost like he was saying, "I'm gonna wait and see how my friends handle my being mishandled," you
Mhm.
know? Because let's face it, when you know your friend's heart.
Yeah.
You know the
Mhm.
heart of your friends, but you don't know the heart of your adversaries. You don't know the heart of your enemy, those people who haven't had the chance to meet you maybe. Or see you in person and get to know who I know all of you to be. So even through those 6 detestable things, 7
Mhm.
being, there too, Jesus went through every single one of them, and he
Well,
was silent.
the other thing that is worth mentioning, because yes, silence is apparently the thing that we should choose. But I can't think of a time that I know of someone who has been mishandled that their persecutors have not paid for it in the end.
Yeah. Mhm.
When you really think about it, God means it when he says, "Vengeance is mine, I will repay." He is gonna restore the years the locusts have eaten. He's not gonna allow your pain at someone else's hand to go without being paid for. And I think that is one of the things we can rest in, and it's what I try to go to in most situations. I'm good at breakups. I've had so many of them that, like, when some guy hurts my feelings, I'm mad for a while, and then I can get over it. I'm friends with most of my exes because there's a place where it's like, "Yeah, but one day you're gonna call me up and be like, 'I realize what I lost.'"
Mhm.
Well, God is way more just than even that,
Mhm.
and at the time that He has ordained, your persecutors are gonna pay.
Yeah. I and forgive me if I'm wrong on this. when Jesus was born, not a cry he made. That's more than just a Christmas carol, right? He didn't
Oh,
cry, and he didn't cry out on the cross except to say that it was
it was
finished.
done.
Could it be could it be that silence ushers in power?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Because when Jesus was born, it was silent. When he died and finished, it was silent. And on either side of that was the promise that redeemed all of mankind and ourselves. Maybe that's why it's so hard for us to be quiet when we're wronged, because we're so scared nobody's going to redeem us. And yet the whole world was redeemed in the silence of a child and the silence of a Savior that was killed on the cross.
Okay. We can stop now.
Well, I'm seeing Kelly is posting preach right there. Kelly Crocker, preach.
Yeah. Well, and I want to throw out there too, along those same lines. Many of you know the story of Anthony Fox, a JPD officer who was wrongfully convicted of allegedly killing a man that he didn't kill. And I mean, there's a lot that points to there being a very targeted attack on him. While he was in prison, there was a group of us. Fox and I have been friends for a very long time. That's not a secret. And so there was a group of us that would walk 7 times around the Supreme Court building, waiting on his appeal, or we wanted them to overturn the case, which they ended up doing. And at some point, at first, like Jericho, we would walk around that building 7 times and just pray. And we had a recording of the horns that the Israelites used. And at some point, it came around, why don't we do some praise music? And one of the songs that I found has a line in it that just moves my spirit every time I hear it. And it's Debbie Boone.
Mhm.
And she says, "You form the world with just a whisper." No, it's talking from God's
Yeah.
perspective. I form the world with just a whisper, and I'm getting ready to shout. And at one point we were walking and that part came on, and I just felt in my spirit, I felt God shouting, and I felt the walls of Jericho falling. And it was just weeks after that they overturned Fox's conviction.
Yeah.
And to me, when I look at a situation where you say there was no hope, he was behind bars. And God still was able to come in, and he will, like I said, he'll restore the years the locusts have eaten. But in that, Fox didn't have a say. I mean, his family wasn't allowed to say anything. There was a gag order that I don't think was legal that was put on. I mean, throughout it was said, like, don't get on Facebook, stay off everything.
Mm.
Silence was the only option. And in that, let God do the shouting.
Yeah.
Because he's going to, and those walls are going to fall. And I use that as an example, and I don't think he would mind my using it. But it's like that in all of our situations, because when you are led in front of Pilate, whatever your Pilate is, what do you do? Sometimes, I mean, when it's a courtroom that has said, well, you're guilty, how do you speak up for yourself? You can't. You're done.
Right.
When you're in a situation where someone's brought some kind of allegation of your conduct against you, or when the court of social media has decided what you are, how do you defend yourself? Because you can say, I'm not that, but they're like, yeah, whatever,
Yeah.
but that's where you have to get quiet, like you're talking about, and let God do the shouting.
Heather commenting, "Wow, ladies, that is powerful stuff." Again, as I said before, we are not professionals.
No.
We're
No.
just people who are professionals. So we are professional people.
Yeah.
From the standpoint of we go through the same things every single one of you go through. Ours just may be a little bit more public, if you will, than yours are. I think it's important for us to say that just because the Lord may tell you to be silent, that silence may only be for a season.
Yes.
It may only be for a season, until he is ready to reveal what he was doing behind the scenes in your life for his glory.
Well, think about it. Jesus eventually, his story was told, and it has changed the
Absolutely.
world.
Mhm.
And I saw where Teresa had said, I needed this encouragement today, ladies. And it brought something to my mind. So I see this situation, and I don't think any of us in this room has this situation, but I feel led to speak to the ladies and men that are going through ugly divorces. Because that's where sometimes you have the one that's just just
Mhm.
going after the other one, just, and you're going before a judge and there's all this stuff going back and forth. I've seen some really nasty divorces, and sometimes my advice to people is like, just don't say anything. Just let them say whatever, just whatever. And you can't, because like that's your husband or your wife that's doing that.
Right.
But I feel like it needs to be said, just, there, even in those times when the emotion is so heavy and it's so personal, and it's not just, say, your boss is saying this or a court is saying this or somebody that doesn't really know you on the inside, but the person who's known you best in the world.
Mhm.
I think that's when you really need to sit silent, because that's when God hurts as much as you do. So I just feel like there are people out there that are going through that, like, well, I can't believe I ever loved this person because now look what they're trying to do to me. God sees that too, and he redeems that also.
That's so true.
Mhm.
So true. Well, I want us to take a moment and say a great big thanks to one of our sponsors who is making this conversation, available for us to have today.
Yeah, we are so grateful for Complete Exteriors. Look, they cover your roof. They take care of your home where your family is. This is the most important investment that you have is your family, and you wanna make sure that you can lay your head down at night and not worry. As the weather is getting colder, perhaps the storms did a number on your roof, call Complete Exteriors. They need to be your first phone call. They're more than a roofing contractor. They're members of our communities. They're family people just like us. They were established in 2007. They're hometown roofing contractors for residential. Maybe you have a business. They also do commercial roofing. They can take care of your issues. Just call them first, 601-326-2755, or you can visit them online at completeexteriorsms.com.
Yeah, and if you have a business that you would like for us to give you a shout out, we would love to do that on your behalf, and we would love for you to be one of the sponsors, so that way we can continue to bring y'all listen here to everybody. Such good conversations. I'm seeing all of the comments still rolling in here. Somebody said, "Oh, who's that?" Ashley says the three of you should write a Bible study together. We kind of feel like we're having our own Bible
I
study
know.
moment right now.
I know.
It's not a bad
Yeah.
I
idea,
know.
says Daniel in the Lion's Den over here.
Well, and for me, like, that's kind of the reason I look forward to this so much, is that I don't get to have these conversations
Yeah.
with everybody all the
Right.
time, and to have it with two of my best friends and be able to share it with our viewers and listeners. To me, that's a big deal because,
Yeah.
you never know what people around you are going through, but if they can learn something from us, from our vulnerability. And Tracy, I'm still so moved by what you said. I mean,
Absolutely.
just to be able to share that, I feel like God put this idea out here for a reason.
And we need to realize and give ourselves enough grace that it is okay for us to feel guilt
Yeah.
in some respects, that we do want to roar.
Yeah.
We want to tell people when we've been mishandled. Would you
Right.
agree?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, you want to tell your side of the story, and you want to tell why this hurt you and why you're putting up that boundary, Tracy, and why you're putting up that boundary,
Mhm.
Therese. You do want to do that, and you should not feel guilty for wanting to do that,
Mhm.
to share how other people have mishandled you. But it's all about God's timing, because at the same time, I think about Joseph, being thrown into the pit
Mhm.
Mhm.
and sold, and then, of course, he's wrongfully accused of molestation or rape. Some versions of the Bible possibly allude to that. And then at the very end, you see how everything that he went through was for the redemption of others, and to prove that God was with him in the prison and God was with him in the pit. And that's when God shows his hand the most, is on the other side
Yeah.
of that pit experience, or on the other side of that prison experience, like with Anthony.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I'll tell you, I was writing in my journal the other day, and it dawned on me, like, when you're going through something, I don't know if it was misting outside or it was foggy, but when you are in a deep fog or a deep mist, and when you are going through something, you can't see where to put your foot next.
Mhm.
You can't see who's around you. You don't know if they're friend or foe. You don't know what a sound is. You have no idea. and how much that reminded me of walking through faith, because you are walking through something and you are surrounded by something and you can't see the effects of it until you come out of it and you are wet with dew because it has encompassed you. And that's what faith does, I think, is like that dew. You can't see what's going on around you. You can't do. All you can trust is that your next your next step is gonna land on solid ground. And when you come out of it, you are wet with the dew of faith that was around you the whole time, that is leading you on to that next spot. And it's scary. Faith is a scary thing. Stepping out is a scary thing because you don't know. If you knew, you wouldn't need faith.
So true. Tim has just posted saying that, we shouldn't be dictated by our past experiences, no matter how painful. That does not have to dictate your present and your future, that you are not your
Mhm.
history, that God has a purpose. Thank you for sharing that, Tim. That
Mm.
is so good. And really what a pivotal time that we are all in this era of reality in this year of 2024, and here we are about to go into 2025. It's almost like God handpicks you to go through these mishandlings, if you will, in your personal life, in your private life, because He's going to need you to be equipped to help other people, as we continue to move forward until Jesus comes back,
Mhm.
to help people go through their own issues.
Well, and so Patsy's up there and she said being mishandled by those you love cripples you.
Ooh.
And I think that that's kind of why we're here
Mm.
talking about this, is because I mean, it's traumatic to have someone that you love betray you. I mean, cuz honestly that's what we're talking about. When you're mishandled, it's because you have given that trust to someone who then has turned around and used it against you, or who has targeted you and said that's the one I'm going to do this to, or whatever
Yeah,
the case may be. And I think if we keep using the idea of the pit that we've talked about so many times, um, there are a couple different ways you can look at it. If you get in that pit and you look down and all you see is the floor of that pit, you're at the bottom.
right.
If you look around you and all you can see are the walls of the pit, well, at least you kind of know what size it is, but you're still in the pit and that's all you're thinking about. You've got to remember to look up,
Mhm.
because one day you're going to get out of there. It's just a matter of like, from here I am. I acknowledge that this is the pit and I'm here.
Mhm.
How do I find my way back to the top? And I think ultimately, if we're making a mental picture out of this, that's where you got to just know Jesus is standing there at the top, reaching down, giving you his hand. It will take, some cases, in many cases, it's going to take for years to get out of there. I mean, we're not saying any of this is easy, but it goes back to courage and to faith and to just knowing that the God of the universe aligned this situation, because somewhere in there is an answer for you that you can later give to somebody else that will help them. And that's really what led us to start this, is that, when you said we aren't professionals, we're professionals at some things. I'm a professional at getting dumped. I'm a
Yeah.
professional at getting cheated on. I'm a professional at trusting people way too much.
Yeah.
I mean, not just in relationships, but friends too. I get dumped by my friends.
Yeah.
But not by
Right,
us.
but not by
Okay.
y'all. So, I mean, when it comes down to it, we all have these examples of things in our lives that stink. But
Mhm.
because we've had those, the three of us can sit here and help others.
Well, if you think about the people that we have in our own lives, maybe people that grew up in our community or in our church, who you look at them now and you're like, wow, I remember when they went through this,
Mm.
or I remember this happening to them, and I saw how they went through that. We have those own examples in our own life. And God allowed them to go through those mishandlings to be a grand example for us. And now we're all kind of finding ourselves in that same rerun.
Yeah, and ultimately to bring him glory through all of
Yeah.
this. So, remember that and sometimes I wonder too, and I'm just gonna pose this question. Do you think sometimes there's a mishandling of ourselves that we do
Oh,
Yes.
yes.
that needs to probably be dealt with?
And that might have
Okay.
to be another topic.
I think last time we brought
This is with your therapist. Right.
well, and I think we brought that up last time we were all three here and said we do
Yeah.
need to talk about that, because that is something that I know you and I have talked about so
Yeah.
many times, that I'll look in the mirror and be like, ugh.
Yeah.
And then be like, stop it. Stop it. Like, just because I don't like what I see at the moment, it doesn't mean the rest of the world sees me like I see me. And I need to be able to see me like God sees me and not the way I feel
Absolutely.
when I wake up in the
Let
morning.
me tell you, my devotional this morning was talking about how we don't give ourselves the credit to walk in our anointing like we should.
Mhm.
And the exercise was to write 21 things about yourself that you like.
21 things.
21 things. I just sat there and looked at the page and I'm like, I mean, I got all day, right? To come back to this. But it's hard to do that sometimes.
Well, and I should probably then tell the story of my crown.
Yes, you
Okay.
should.
So I went to this church experience called the Walk to Emmaus, and I cannot tell you anything about it except that on the last day or one of the last days, I was given this, and it was to remind me that I'm a child of the King.
Mhm.
And what's so funny is immediately I put it on my head and I was like, I'm wearing this everywhere. And then I would sit at my house with it on my head. And it was for a lot of reasons. Partially, I was that little girl that always
Yeah.
didn't get to be in the beauty pageants and didn't get to do all that. So I was like, okay, well, I never got to wear a crown. So,
Yes.
and the thing is, though, like I pull it out for days like this. And I'm glad that we're talking about this because that is the important thing. And it's one of those things that's surreal. We hear it so many different places. You're a child of the King. You're a princess in God's eyes. You're whatever. And it's like a metaphor, so we don't have to take it seriously. I think as Christians, we will write that off and we'll look at the things we find wrong with ourselves instead of saying like, no, seriously. Like again, the God of the universe took the time, first of all, to create me,
Mhm.
second of all, to invite me to find him. Third, to accept me when I did say, please, God, please save me. Fourth,
Mhm.
to walk with me every day.
Yeah.
So what are a couple of wrinkles? I mean, what is, oh no, some girl that worked at the state with me was mean to me.
Mhm.
What is that? Knowing what lies ahead.
That's right.
It's just focus.
Yeah.
Fixing your focus.
Parting thoughts, Traci?
No, I just have a lot to think, I think, about what was said today and what we shared with each other. You know, I know Barbie has said before, like, is this scripted? Do y'all script this? No, these are all conversations that we just literally had. So it's almost like I have to go back and process some of the stuff that was said, even from myself
Mhm.
today, and just kind of figure out how I need to realign to get myself in a position to be able to receive and release.
But it's such a daily reminder for all of us. It's a daily thing, right? We take up our cross daily
Yeah.
to follow him. I'm reminded of what the psalm talks about, how he prepares a table before you. Where?
In presence
Front
of
of
your
your
enemies.
In the
enemies.
presence of your enemies. And the question that I want to encourage both of us, all of us, and even you watching this is God is looking for how we steward the influence that he has given us, even through the mishandlings. How will how will you, Therese, steward the mishandling
Mm-hmm.
that you've had?
Just to be clear, swing on them is not the right answer.
That is not the answer.
Just
Darn
wanted to
it.
be clear.
That is not one
To
of
clear
the
that up.
multiple choice questions. This is not the ACT.
Right.
And there's not a
Just-
category for D, all of the above.
Just, just making sure we were clear on that.
Yeah, but, just how will we steward the influence that he has given us even through your own mishandlings, Traci?
Yeah.
You know, when I was younger, my mom had a favorite song that then became my favorite song and still is one of my favorites. And it was by Twyla Paris called The Warrior as a Child.
Yep.
And if you don't know that song, please just go Google it because I guess my parting thought is in all of this, never forget first that it's okay to go lay in his lap and sob.
Yep.
Mhm.
Second, that he has equipped you with the armor you need to get up, pull yourself back together, and go back out to the fight because he is the source of your strength.
Well, that's a whole word right
Yeah,
there,
it
and
is.
we've done it in about 45 minutes. We might have to have a part 2, maybe even a part 3 to this. Who knows? But I hope that each one of you watching this today, whether you're watching live or watching the replay, that you've been encouraged. I've been encouraged by y'all sharing what you've shared today.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to have to process too, like Traci
Yeah.
was talking about.
A lot of stuff. But I love y'all. This has been good.
Oh my
This
gosh, I love y'all so
has
much.
been good. So We hope to see you again on another episode coming up very, very soon on Y'all Listen Here.
It's a brand new day.